Okay, part 2. We'll see if we can get through this. So she checked me. My bag of water was bulging. Like, it was bulging so much that she couldn't feel my cervix, right? So she's like, I'm not going to do anything. You know, we're not going to send you home. Like, you can stay here. So then they started talking about pain management. And mind you, I was in a lot of pain. Lots of pelvic pressure, and I was kind of at the point where I was like, I don't want to like wait to get an epidural and then have it like, you know, not have it so that I won't be able to get the epidural because I've waited too long. So I ended up getting the epidural and felt a lot better. Still felt pressure, but I was able to like go through my contractions, and we were just kind of enjoying everything and waiting for the doctor to come and check my cervix and sort of decide what to do next. So the doctor came in, she checked me, and she was like, oh wow, your bag of water is really, really bulging, which again, I feel like is super weird. Like, it should have popped. At least I think it should have. So she's like, why don't we give it a couple more contractions, see if it breaks on its own. If it doesn't break, like, we'll just break it ourselves and kind of go from there. So she comes back. I don't know how long it had been, honestly, but it had been like a couple contractions. She's like, okay, bag of water still isn't popped. Why don't we just pop it, and we'll have a baby? And I was like, yeah, this sounds great. We're all like excited. My husband's there, my mom's there. We're all like, yay, we're gonna like see the baby in like 20 minutes, right? Mind you, for my other home births, it was like, 10 pushes and everybody was out, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point, is that it's going to be quick. And something to like note in the background, obviously I still had my epidural and I was still feeling some pressure, but I wasn't in like a ton of pain. But my epidural had like kinked or stopped working. So keep that in mind. We didn't know that at this point, but the doctor breaks my water. And, tons of amniotic fluid come out, and she's like, okay, looks like you're only about like 9 centimeters dilated with like a little lip. I'm going to try and push that aside, and then we'll give it a couple more contractions, see if you're at 10, and then you should be able to start pushing. Great. So I start pushing, things seem fine, but I'm like slowly noticing that I'm getting like, it's getting more and more painful. And I'm kind of just like, why is this getting more painful? But also like, you're not really with it when you're in labor. So I kind of forgot that I even had an epidural. But I was getting more and more pain, and I was pushing, and he was like moving down, but I could just tell that like my pushes weren't successful. Like, they weren't really doing enough. And then I was starting to, like, not be able to get ahead of the pain. So it had been a little while at that point. Honestly, like, I don't really know the time frame, but it had been like a couple of good pushes. I was sort of getting like thinking, he should be here by now. Like, what's going on? Like, why aren't I like in the crowning stage? Like, why isn't he kind of coming down? And I was just like, my pelvis is just hurting like really, really bad. And remember, my epidural had stopped working, but we didn't know that at that point because nobody was checking. So everybody's waiting, obviously, for him to come out. And the doctor goes, can I check you? Because I think she could also tell that something was kind of weird. And I was like, yes, please do that. So she checks me, and she's like, oh, he's face up, so he's sunny side. Usually when babies are born, they're face down, so it's like easier for them to go through the birth canal. I instantly I don't know, I feel like my mindset instantly changed, and I instantly felt in excruciating pain when she said that, because I think I like acknowledged that the birth was going to be really hard. It was going to be really painful, and I just like didn't want to do that. And she also said, which I feel like this didn't help the situation, she was like, oh, it's going to be really hard and a really long pushing stage. And I just sort of kind of lost it after that. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not like, this is not what I want to do. Like, I want him to be the right way. Right. And I think I was also saying that because I was in a lot of pain, and still nobody had checked my epidural, and I was like getting hysterical, if that makes sense, because of the pelvic pain that I was feeling. And it wasn't like contraction pain. It was like, felt like my pelvis was gonna shatter. So they get me in a couple different positions, and that sort of helps, but he still isn't moving down, and we're trying to sort of like push him down, and like he's just not budging. He's just stuck. And I'll be honest, I was hysterical at this point with the pain because the epidural had worn off. Like I said, still nobody had checked on it. It had probably been, you know, like a good 2 hours since I had gotten it, maybe more. I have no idea. Time was not a factor. So they had me in all these different positions, and then the doctor had suggested like the vacuum, or I honestly don't even know. And I was like, nope. And something clicked, and I was like, something's not right. I could feel that something wasn't right, and I was like, I want a C-section. I don't want to do this. I don't want to push for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then you guys tell me I need a C-section because the baby's in distress or because I'm super freaking tired. And I was really tired at that point. And it hadn't been a long time, but I was so tired because the pain was so bad. And I was getting, or I wouldn't say getting, I was hysterical. I was probably screaming. I was definitely yelling. And I could tell that my mom and my husband were getting really worried because of just my reaction and how much pain I was in. Finally, the doctor and the nurse both were like, oh, I think we lost pain management. And our anesthesiologist came in, and he started getting really pissed off and was like, why is she in so much pain? Why hasn't anybody checked on her epidural? He rips the epidural out of my back, literally rips the tape off, rips it off out of my back. I don't even remember really feeling that. I just remember begging him for another epidural. And once I had decided that I wanted a C-section, everybody left the room. So that was really, I felt like really abandoned. Obviously, my husband and my mom stayed there, but still, they ended up coming back in, or the doctor did, and she asked me, or she asked my mom and my husband, oh, does she always ask for an epidural or for a C-section, you know, during this time at her births? And both of them were like, no, she's had home births. She's never asked for this. So that was also really upsetting because I was coherent enough to hear that. I think I probably said some pretty choice words to her. Don't remember what they were, but I think I said something mean, which I'm not too proud about, but honestly, that was a little hurtful. Anyways, so then they start prepping everything, but we actually don't get into the operating room for about 45 minutes, probably even closer to an hour, because they had to call everybody in and it took forever. And that whole time I had no pain management. I think at one point I was yelling help because I was in so much pain. It was traumatic for everybody, and they just kind of let it happen. I remember talking to my nurse, and she literally ignored me. And the anesthesiologist was just pissed off at everybody because he was like, you know, why aren't you prepping things? Why isn't Dad ready? Like, nobody was ready. Nothing was ready. They just sort of let me like labor without any pain meds, and he was like stuck. So my body was just trying to push him out, and every time I had a contraction, my pelvis felt like it was going to shatter and break. And I'm not sure why they didn't like reinsert my epidural, but finally the anesthesiologist kind of said, F it, I'm gonna prep her in the hallway. He's wheeling me down the hallway. They were literally prepping my husband in the hallway as well, and he was yelling at some of the other nurses, saying to pull them from other units. We finally get into the operating room, and they give me a spinal, and I lay down on the table and instantly felt better, thank God. Come back for part 3.